invitation and for what I am sure will be a very interesting conference. Myself very much looking forward to that. But I also would like to thank Professor Robert for this tradition that is now here at the college, the Vogel-Polsky Lectures. And I'm particularly proud that this year it happens also in the moment when we have the promotion that is named after Vogel-Polsky. And I think that this is going to, and I'm also very grateful to you all for being in the room or connected, because I know this is in the middle of your exam session. So I know that it takes a special commitment and enthusiasm to take some time off your studying in preparation of the exams, even if I always tell my daughters, once it's done, more or less. The day before, there's not so much you can fix, but still, I know how it feels. So thank you also for joining this lecture that I think is going to be extremely important. For me, it is not only a good opportunity to listen to at least part of the conference and learn myself, but also it is an excellent opportunity to highlight the commitment and the policy of the college as such, because we are not only an academic institution. I like to say that we are also somehow contributing to the shaping of the European policy agenda, and we are ourselves somehow connected to the Brussels bubble and the European institution world in many ways, from the presence of our alumni in the institutions, and obviously to the fact that we are also having many visiting professors and many of us that have been working or are working in the institution. So I think that we have a responsibility, a duty, I would say, to set an example in practice, which is something that I hope we're doing more and more, but also to highlight the topics that we believe are particularly important to highlight in the political and academic agenda. And I think that in general terms, gender equality, but in particular the issue of equal pay is one of those topics that not only deserve, I would say, absolutely needs to be put on the agenda, because it is a matter not only of equal rights and fundamental rights, it's also a matter of having our economies and societies work better and more efficiently. So I think it is not to make a favor to anyone, but it's just to have a proper functioning of our systems. At least this is the way I see it, not being an expert on the topic. With this, I've been even too long for welcoming words, but I would just like to state this very loud and clear. I think that it is very important that as a college community, starting from myself, but to all of us, we take a clear stand and a clear, also visible position on the fact that gender equality and the equal pay issue is for us one of the most important topics to be addressed, and that we show it in practice also with the focus that we put in our conferences, in our courses, in our classes and lessons. And I know a lot of student activities too, for which I'm very, very proud. So thank you so much for being this. Thank you also for inviting me to give the opening or the welcoming. I also see Professor Costa connected. Moi, c'est un plaisir d'avoir le directeur d'études aussi, de Paul. So with that, I leave probably to you the floor.
Yeah, very briefly.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. Very nice to see that there's so many of you here, especially in this period of exams, etc. I'm very grateful. I mean, I'm representing Gender 5+ today, and I'm very grateful to the college and to Federica Mogherini in particular to sort of install this tradition, because for us as a small sort of civil society institution, small feminist think tank, it's quite important to be able to have sort of these sort of events, but obviously we've got we are too small to organize something massive, and having access to students in particular is particularly important. Just 2 words on Gender 5+. Why did we create the think tank? I'd been working myself in the commission in the think tank of the president for quite a while. And we were in touch with a lot of think tanks around in the Brussels Beltway, as we call it. But it was very rare that the think tanks would sort of accept to have a gender perspective or to, and I've always thought that to have a gender perspective meant that you could look at things in another way, right? And having ideas for transformative policies. So this is why we created this think tank. Why G5 plus? Because there were 5 of us at the beginning. We had sort of 5 main issues: the economy, the violence against women, the media, what else? Legal issues, and the environment. On top of that, we wanted to compete with the G8, G7, etc. So we thought G5 was a good thing. Anyway, one of our first sort of endeavor was actually when Hélène Vogel-Polsky died. It was the 13th of November 2000. Very vocal about Hélène Vogel-Polsky. It was only later, on the 9th of December or something, that Le Monde sort of made a little sort of obituary on Hélène. But at the time, I sort of tried to sort of tell journalists, etc., that there should be something on her, because she had been really a remarkable sort of driver thinker, driver, etc., for European social policy in general and for gender equality in particular. I was asked to make a conference at ULB, realized that there was very few pictures of her, and we were sort of encouraged in Gender 5+ to make a film. From that film, which has been shown, etc., we've shown it in many places, and she's getting a little bit more known. But I'm particularly grateful to Federica Mogherini to have sort of chosen, with the help of the preceding generation of students, this name to be the patron of your promotion, because then you will sort of be attached to her all your life. You'll have her in your CV. And I know my son has got Albert Einstein, right? I mean, it was a promotion, and he's still sort of attached to the Albert Einstein. So I think it's an important thing to have a promotion named by her. Not to be too long, in Gender 5+, we do quite a bit of research on various issues. We take even stagiaires. We've got Victoire here, with our current stagiaire, who's working on the Conference on the Future of Europe. And we do sort of maintain a lot of links with academics. I'm very happy today that Sophie Jacot has accepted, Professor Jacot, has accepted to sort of give the speech today. She's certainly one of the sort of deepest researcher and on gender equality policy, the most prolix, and was really been an analyst, was really sort of given us in policymaking the eyes to sort of think things further. I mean, equal pay, of course, is one big issue. That was the issue in 1966, when there was the hairstyle crisis, and that women were going through the streets of Liège, sort of saying, we want Article 119, which was the article on equal pay. That was the first big strike in Belgium. But there were strikes of women all over Europe at the time, because women were paid pin money. So they're not paid pin money anymore today. But I mean, still, there is a 14% gap between the pay of women and men, and this is still problematic. This is linked to a lot of other discriminations. But without further ado, I think I will give the floor to Professor Jacot to sort of give a lecture.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And hi, everyone. Nice to see you. And thank you very much for inviting me here at the college. Thank you very much to Federica Mogherini. Thank you to Agnès for thinking about me for this lecture. And also Andrea here and Margot over there who made it happen. And on the same line, I would like to say that it is a special honor for me to be invited in the framework of these Eliane Vogel-Polsky lectures, because as soon as I started in the field of EU studies, she is a central figure. And we discussed earlier about is she famous or not, and in what circles. For my part, she was always there in a way. Whether I worked on strategic litigation at the EU level, on the importance of expertise, on EU lobbying also, of course. And of course, when you work on gender and the EU, she's always there and very much important. And so she always comes back in my work in a way. And it has, in fact, been the case this last fall, because so I've been contacted by two researchers on gender studies, Isabelle Engeli and Amy Mazer, and they asked me to join a collaborative project that they have initiated, which is called Gender Equality Policy in Practice. And the aim of this project is to analyze the outputs and the outcomes, the results of all the many programs that have been launched worldwide. The project is really a big one. And the project aimed at promoting gender equality since a few decades. And the question within this project is to ask what do these programs matter? Have they been successful in redressing structural inequalities? So it is a big question. So the project is broken down into sub-projects, and there is one specific sub-project on equal pay, especially. And so I am in charge of examining the success, in a way, of equal pay policy at the EU level. And this is where I met Eliane Vogel-Polsky again when starting to work on this specific subject during the autumn. So then really the question is about the politics of implementation of equal pay policy, so equal pay for equal work or work of equal value. This is the precise definition between women and men workers at the EU level. I have just prepared, I don't know, it's not working. Maybe I can, no, it's not this computer. Okay, so we'll see that if we do not have the PowerPoint, it's not such a big problem. So I was saying that I've tried, thank you very much, Andrea. Yes, you have the main question here and a few pictures, which, thank you, which are here to illustrate in a way I've tried to think about the set of reasons that can explain why I've chosen to tackle this specific subject with you today, because it is only one part of my work. So the first one is it was mentioned by Agnès, the importance, first the historical importance of the issue. You see here the original Article 119, which introduced equal pay into the Treaty of Rome. So it is an important subject from a historical point of view, but also it is a foundation of the EU for legal reasons. You see that here, economic, political, but also I think from an identity point of view. Equal pay is important for the EU as a common value. It is important for what the EU is as a polity, and also for how it wants to be seen and considered, and being a polity which considers equal pay as a common value and a fundamental principle. Second, here. Sorry, this one is not working. Okay. Sorry. Second reason is, sorry for the WebEx, but what you have here in the frame on the wall, and I've taken an image from your website, and of course you are the Eliane Vogel-Polsky promotion. And she is really at the root of this policy, the Defresne case. There is Gabrielle Defresne in Sabena plain. Also here, it is really thanks to the second Defresne judgment in 1976 that equal pay became a principle of the European community at the time, and also that it obtained the status, or where she obtained the direct effect of equal pay, allowing every woman European citizen to go in front of the national courts with equal pay requests. Third, I don't know, should I wave at you? Sorry. Thank you, Andrea. So third reason is the one you have. You don't have to read it. It's not important, but it is a press release from March 2021. And it is to remind you that the issue of equal pay is timely, because you have actually this proposal for a directive on the application of equal pay through measures of pay transparency, which is on the negotiation table of the Council and the European Parliament. Okay, so the Parliament and the Council have both settled their position, and they will enter now into negotiation together. And finally, the fourth reason. No, it's just the graph. Okay. Margot will change the slide. Margot. Okay. Thank you, Margot. So the fourth reason is, and you have here a graph of the level of the gender pay gap. So equal pay is a major public policy problem, and as students, as future young workers on the labor market, you are concerned directly with this. So you know certainly that 2022 has been a decided to be the European Year of the Youth. And so on this occasion, and I thank really Agnes for drawing my attention to this, the Commission published a specific study on the gender pay gap among young workers. So it shows, and its story is quite small. I have underlined in the black box in the middle the EU average. But the general gender pay gap, Agnes mentioned it, is 14.1%. And for the young category of workers, 25 to 29, it is a 7% gap. So even before the first pregnancy, the first career breaks, there is a 7% gender pay gap among the workers. So it means that for you, once, and the young woman here, once you are graduated, you will start your professional career on the EU labor market, experiences this amount of discrimination. And this discrimination will double as you grow older, as you experience career breaks, as you bear even more the burden of unpaid care work. And finally, when you reach, well, if nothing changes, when you reach 65, this gap will double again, since you will receive a pension which on average will be 29% lower than that of men. Okay, so these were my reasons to try to convince you of the interest of the issue. So Margot, if you can go to the next one, thank you. I will, yes, maybe I could have waited a little more, whatever. So I come back with what I'm going to present to you today on the implementation of equal pay at the EU level and the results. So I will first tell you a few words here on what I've called the paradox of equal pay at the EU level, and something that has been designated as a continuing source of sorrow by many experts. This phrase, I think, is yeah, it is important, and it embodies something of the relationship of the EU to the gender pay gap, especially. So a continuing source of sorrow being the EU equal pay policy. And after that, I will try to give you some explaining elements about this persisting failure to close the gender pay gap since the last 15 years. So paradox, as you see here on the left side of the slide, I have just summed up very quickly all the different policy instruments that the EU has mobilized in order to tackle the question of pay discrimination at the EU level. And what we see is that this issue is in a way almost over-regulated at the EU level, meaning that all the possible instruments, primary law, secondary law, there is also an important case law, but soft regulation also, all the instruments that the EU has in its power to regulate the issue are here and have been mobilized, and have been mobilized since the very beginning, since Article 119 in 1957. So the regulation of this issue is long-standing at the EU level. It is rich. There is a large, diverse panel of policy instruments. However, and it is the right-hand side of the slide, the difficulty to ensure the implementation and the successful implementation of what is, as I said before, a fundamental principle of the EU. So this difficulty to implement the principle, it is as old, almost as old as the principle itself. And I don't know if you've heard about that, but in 1961, there was the passage to the second stage of the common market, and it stumbled over the issue of the implementation of equal pay. There needed to be a political agreement on the 31 of December 61 to accept for the member state to accept the beginning of the second stage of the common market, despite lack of implementation of Article 119. So more recently, and it is the arrow you have, the difficulty to bring equal pay into practice has been summed up as what is called most of the time the phenomenon of the persistence of the gender pay gap. So the gender pay gap as an indicator dates back from the beginning of the 21st century. It took a few years to stabilize. We can come back on that. But what is important is that this specific indicator, the percentage I gave you at the beginning, 14.1% at the moment. This indicator started to embody, in a way, the result of all the equal pay policy. There is some sort of fetishization, we could say, of this percentage, and it means that the equal pay policy has started to be seen through the eyes of the very slow and small changes. It's not really visible, but it is declining a little bit, but very, very slowly. And the entire policy is seen through this very small decrease. And the public action of the EU, in a way, is symbolized by the absence of change and then seen only, in a way, as a supposed failure. So this is the paradox here. On the one side, you have a mobilization of all the possible instruments that exist, and on the other one, no satisfying outcome. So it leads to the question you have below, how to deal with a public problem which always sticks, which never disappears, and how do the European institutions deal with this persisting failure? Yes, thank you. So to try to answer this question, I could have tackled this in many different ways, but I've chosen here to focus on the EU level, on the politics of the implementation of the EU equal pay policy since especially 2006, when there was the second directive after the first one in 1975 that mentioned equal pay, up until the tabling of the new proposal. And you have the question, and I've done that especially through documentary analysis for this specific project. So we can move on. Thank you. So this is the moment where I try to wrap all this and let you know what I think we can make about the analysis of what happened between 2006, the most recent directive, and 2021, when the policy solution that was chosen was to propose a new piece of legislation. The first thing, I've made a table. Well, you don't have to look at it in details, but it shows what happened from an institutional point of view during this period, what documents especially have been adopted. You have the documents from the Commission, you have the resolution from the European Parliament, the Council conclusion also. And so what we see is that in the last 15 years, there has been some public action on this issue, and it has been continuous. Legal instruments are adopted. Reports, studies, assessments are published. Debates also, it's not on the table, but debates are being held on a regular basis. So it means that the issue is present on the EU agenda almost every year for the last 15 years. The other important thing is the role of political will and political orientation. So you maybe see that it is a columns. I have chosen to break down the table according to the different commissions and commission mandates, because the political factor is important, and also to underline the fact that the issue is not dealt with in the same manner or with the same intensity all the time by the different commission, and it depends of their different level of commitment to gender equality promotion and commitment to the fight against discrimination. So we can come back to that more in detail afterwards. Yes, the next one. Thank you. The third point I'm trying to not to be too long, is the importance of the policy instruments and the fact that policy instruments are not neutral technical devices. They have a political role, they have a political signification. And equal pay is really illustrative of this general phenomenon. And in fact, the way the EU should try to reduce the gender pay gap using what kind of instruments has been a very conflictual question since day one after the adoption of the 2006 recast directive. Should the measures be binding or not binding? What should be the degree of constraints, etc., etc.? These are the questions that are really at the center of these questions about the choice of policy instruments. So what we can see here is the fact that progressively the degree of constraints that is chosen has risen. And it started from mainly soft law measures, recommendation, exchanges of good practices, for example, to what we have now, that is to say, a proposal for a directive. And it is the discourse of the strengthening of the principle of equal pay that is the more or that has become the louder one in a way. It means also that the issue of pay transparency as an innovative or good solution to the problem of equal pay has been on the rise too, because also it is a question that is seen as it can be something that can be legislated upon. in a way. So it fits with this framework, and it became a sort of magic solution in a way. Another important point with regard to the instruments concern the orientation of the instruments, the phrasing, what is the range of the instrument chosen. And here you have two different positions which are advocated by two different groups of stakeholders. So first you have what we can call a substantive conception or understanding of equal pay. With this conception, the gender pay gap is seen as being the result of structural inequalities. It is a result of systemic devaluation of women's work. So it means that in order to tackle such an issue, which is structural, which is systemic, then you have to have a very large range of instruments, and you have to tackle the hardcore of EU policies, especially economic policy. You have to have gender mainstreaming within the European semester, for example. So to this first conception, you have another one which conflicts with this, and which is a more narrow understanding of equal pay, a conception that considers that the responsibility for gender inequalities are diluted and are mainly to be placed on individuals. It is not structural, it is individual rather than collective. Discrimination is the result of individual choices. Then, to solve the problem, women should change their behavior. They should be encouraged to work in sectors that offer better pay, for example. And it means that if you support such an understanding, such a framing, then you will choose other kind of policy instruments, such as awareness training programs, different information instruments to fight gender stereotypes, for example. Okay, so but it is more individual than collective, and it is not the responsibility of the firms themselves, especially. Then the fourth point considers the issue of the inclusiveness of the policy process. In the field of gender equality policy, inclusive policy empowerment is an important factor to assess the success of a gender equality policy. Are actors from the gender equality policy community taken into account within the process or not? What we see here is, first, there have been an important change between 2006 and 2021, and it is the increased role given to equality bodies and NGOs, and you can especially see this in the new proposal. Another important point when you look at the actors, the stakeholders, is to take into account, of course, the social partners. And here, what we see is that the Commission recently has expressed the will to relaunch the European social dialogue on the issue of equal pay. However, there are important obstacles to that. First of these obstacles is the decline of the European social dialogue itself. And this is particularly visible in the field of gender equality. Another reason for these obstacles is the fact that workers' organization and employers' organization have conflicting positions on the issue of equal pay, as can be seen by their views on the current proposal on pay transparency, and all the employers' organizations especially are opposed to this proposal. Last point is the marginalization of gender equality within the architecture of EU's economic and social governance. One first thing is to see that, so since the mid-2000s, more or less, gender mainstreaming and gender equality have progressively been downgraded within this architecture. And the recent pandemic has not really changed that. So it means that with regard to macroeconomic coordination, you do not really have a gender dimension which is taken into account. And this has a direct impact on the way economic priorities are fixed, and also on wage formation at the domestic level, for example. So you have policy choices which are made, which also, for example, you have this on the slide, increased decentralization, individualization of wage setting, which are in favor of the restructuration of the public sector. And all these choices have negative effects with regard to equal pay, or at least with regard to the fight against the gender pay gap. So you have a structural imbalance between what are the policy targets of economic governance on the one side and the policy targets which are here to promote equal pay on the other side. So this structural imbalance is of course very important because it hinders the possible outcomes of the equal pay policy. And yes, the conclusion now. Thank you. So to conclude, maybe on a more general note, I would like to present to you two remarks, something that struck me when working on this issue. And both remarks have to do with this idea of failure about implementing equal pay, and this idea of what does it mean to fail in EU policy making. The first thing is what I've called embracing failure. So when I wrote this, I'm speaking a little bit like a self-help podcast, but it's not really the idea. What I wanted to underline is that it is interesting to see that, in fact, in all the documents, and it is counterintuitive, there is no blame avoidance. Failure is it is acknowledged, it is accepted in a way by the EU institution. I would not say that it is trumpeted or that it is claimed as such, but it is not swept under the rug in a way. It is faced. So, and rather it is presented and considered as a motivation for action, as a driver to find new solutions, to find innovative policy solutions, alternative policy solutions at least. To try to understand that, certainly there is something that has to do with this weakness that you have within the EU political system of the direct link between policy and politics, and which is characteristics of the EU political system and this level of government. So this is a first hint. Second point on policy failure is redefining success and failure. So if we only take into account the figures of the gender pay gap, as I've showed them to you, of course, then the equal pay policy is a failure. The policy has poor outcomes on this regard. But if we, for example, take the context into consideration, so it's not so clear-cut anymore. The same period from the mid-2000s is and until the beginning of the 2020s, it has been characterized by a sidelining of gender equality issues on the agenda of the EU. This is something that in some of my work I've called a period of policy dismantling. So you have an adversarial context. And in this context, the implementation of equal pay cannot be described only as an example of policy failure. As I told you at the beginning, it remained on the policy agenda all along. And this can be seen as a form of policy success. The gender equality policy community managed to ensure continuous silence of the issue. And so it did not disappear completely in a way. And it created the conditions for the new current commission to take over the issue, to include it already framed, already precisely defined with precise solutions, such as pay transparency. So to be taken over, to be included in the political guidelines of the von der Leyen commissions, and to commit to a legislative proposal. And within, this is the very last point, within this process of maintaining the issue on the agenda and ensuring continuing political attention, one actor plays a specific part as a gender equality actor, and this is the European Parliament. The European Parliament, within this process, had a prominent role, and this has been already largely underlined, the fact that there is a specific role of the European Parliament as a gender equality promoter. But here, with this case study, we can see how it exerts this power, how it is possible, how the institution uses its parliamentary tools in the long term across the legislators to promote gender equality at the EU level, especially using its evaluation power, regular expertise requirement, and provision also. This is a window to understanding how the European Parliament, in a way, is important within this process. Yes, and that's it. Thank you very much. And
Thank you very much, Professor Jacot, for this very instructive presentation. Before hearing a few words from Professor Costa and Professor Hubert, we're going to take a few questions. So we have around 10 minutes. I don't know if any of you wants to go. Maybe a small point of order, but as we have people online, Professor Jacot, if you can make sure to repeat the question or reformulate it so that everyone online can hear it. Thank you. Is there any questions so far? Okay. Yeah. Good.
You were talking about two visions of considering the so substantive and narrow one. do you believe that the Equal Pay Transparency Directive is rather part of the narrow vision, since it basically puts the responsibility on women to ask for their firm for different kinds of information and to be sure whether they're equally paid or not? Or do you think that actually it gives it makes firms accountable for actual equal pay for their employees?
Yeah. Thank you. Should I answer right now?
Well, if you
Yeah.
can reformulate.
Okay, yeah, sure. So the question is about the two conceptions of equal pay that we find among the different stakeholders, and what is the, how is the proposal for a directive framed in a way? Does it lean on the one side or the other side, right? Well, there are two ways to answer this question. First one is to look at the proposal itself, and then there will be, of course, the negotiation. On some points, there are strong negotiation points from the part of the European Parliament to strengthen it, especially. But at the moment, I would say that what is interesting, it is a really balanced proposal because it goes really further than the recast directive in a way. You have, as I already mentioned, a more important role given to actors, given to trade unions to assist the victims, given to equality bodies, to NGOs, to represent victims in the courts and also in administrative settlements, for example. You have also clearly some obligations for the firms and the organizations that are contained within the proposals. Of course, some would say that, for example, the requirement for pay audits is set at the moment at 250 employees. This is, there is a controversy here, of course. This will be the results of the negotiation. So, but still, first thing is, it is a proposal for binding instruments. So this really goes into the direction of a large and comprehensive understanding of equal pay, because on the narrow understanding consider that you will not solve the issue through binding instruments. And there are really some constraints that are within the directive. But of course, you find whether in the directive proposal or, for example, in the last gender equality strategy of the Commission, a large place is given to the fight against stereotypes, for example, which is or falls into this narrow understanding that I mentioned, but checks and balances, of course. But you've seen the table. For many years, a lot of actors, including the Parliament and including the Council, asked for the Commission to propose a legislative piece. And for many years, the Commission refused to present a formal proposal. And now we have a proposal on the table to look on the glass half full. Thanks.
Other questions? Maybe I have one then. Maybe I just have one question about the role of social partners that you talked about. How, like I was just wondering what type of actors were included in that sort of social dialogue. Is it big NGOs? Is it sort of more radical, critical partners? Is it firms? How did it change also the outlook of the European institutions on the strategies and pieces of legislation that they proposed? Like, did you see anything substantive, or was it really a sort of open method of coordination, sort of discursive outlook on things.
Thank you, Andrea. So I'm not sure when referring to the social partners, it is really the formal treaty-defined European social partners and the European social dialogue also treaty-defined. And this is what I was referring to. And this is also really what is problematic, the fact that the European social dialogue is in a poor shape at the moment at the EU level because of the fact that it's not so much, well, maybe there will be a change of view from the Commission on this issue, but in the last years, the Commission did not promote the European social dialogue so much, but also joint social dialogue, that is to say between the social partners themselves, the employers and the employees, is really difficult. And it is really difficult, especially in the field of gender equality. For example, you used to have the social partners signed a common framework program with specific points they agreed to tackle together, so to work on commonly. This has been decided in 2005. It ran for 4 years. Nothing more has been agreed upon since. There is no common ground here to be discussed. And as I said, the employers, all the three organizations are fiercely opposed to the directive proposal. Yes, so this is specific, does not include NGOs, not so much. Well, not at all, in fact.
Any more questions before we pass on the floor to Professor Costa? No? Okay, can we proceed? All right, then, Professor Costa, thank you so much for joining us in this conference and also for supporting the conference. Would you like to give a few words of conclusion?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. Maybe I have 3 remarks. The first one is that the official history of the EU does not leave enough space to women. Things are changing, and I'm sure that the history people will tell about what is happening currently in the EU will be a bit different. But when we look back in the past, there is not that many founding mothers. And Eliane Vogel-Polsky is one of the founding mothers, but not one which is very well known. And it's really great that this promotion is named after her, because she really deserved it. She did not draft treaties, but she had a major contribution to European integration by putting social question on the EU agenda when no one wanted to do that. And maybe it's more important that some aspect of institutional design, or at least citizens care more about social policy than institutional design. Last year, the simulation game we're organizing in Paul was about gender equal pay. And so during the whole year, all the students, all the promotion has been working on that issue. And I'm very proud that the professors have decided to choose that topic, because then we have 100 guys and girls in Brussels who know everything about the legal context that was discussed by Sophie. And also the arguments on both sides and the reality of that gap. And I think it's very important to think more about that. My second remark is that we academics are very often quite frustrated about the impact of our work. We keep writing papers that are only read by colleagues and sometimes students who are forced to do that. But other scholars like Sophie Jacot, they have a chance to make a difference. And I'm a bit jealous about that because they're providing an objective view on the state of play on a very important policy like gender policies or the gender pay regulation. And they give indication to civil society organization, to media, but also to policymakers. And Eliane Vogel-Polsky was that kind of person, being active during her whole life, both in the academia and towards public authorities, using her academic knowledge to make policy changes and using her knowledge of policies to conduct a research. My third remark is that today policies like equal pay are absolutely crucial for the future of Europe and its legitimation. Citizens, they don't care about institutions. Look at the result of the conference on the future of Europe. There is basically nothing on institution, and citizens who are involved in the panel or the platform, they are focusing on policies, on actions, on regulation, and they are expecting more of that. Maybe not the big policies that are provided by the EU after discussion behind closed doors that are mainly for the markets and companies, but more bottom-up policies that are connected to the day-to-day experience of people. And the issue of equal pay is something everyone can experience, or having friends or a partner that is experiencing that. And so I think that in the future, if we want to some sort of reconciliation between the citizens and the EU, we need to move far more on policies, on social policies. So not to take too much of the time, I would like really to thank Sophie Jacot for accepting this invitation and for a fascinating lecture. Thank you also, Agnès. We have been working together for some years now in trying to organize a certain number of events around gender issues, and it's always a pleasure to work with you, Agnès. Thanks again for your involvement in the college. Thank you to Andrea and Margot for the organization of the event, and thank you to the rector, who's always very supportive when we try to take such initiatives.
Thank you very much, Professor. Okay, Agnès, if you want to give the last few words, or no?
I was going to mention how pleasant it's been to work with the Pol department, and particularly with Professor Costa for this few years, actually. And he's always been very, very supportive, even when we had a rector who was less supportive of gender equality. Anyway, just to conclude, I mean, as Sophie was sort of predicting that you will have, that women in the room may have sort of 7% less pay at the beginning of their career, in average. I just hope that this sort of conferences and the insistence and your good knowledge of sort of gender discriminations and where they are will empower you to negotiate your salary, will empower you in general to sort of affirm your status and your position in your professional life as much as you want, women and men. But Bruges is such a good training for that. I wish you all the best for the end of the year. Bye.
All right, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Il y avait Emmanuela. Cynthia, c'est